Ethan Carter had always believed that doing the right thing mattered more than getting ahead. At 24, he was struggling to break into the corporate world after putting himself through community college and late-night delivery jobs. When he finally landed an interview at a powerful tech company in Chicago, it felt like his last lifeline. The security guard at the front desk eyed his worn shoes with doubt, but Ethan held his head high. Today was supposed to change his life. He had memorized every answer, rehearsed every smile, and carried a quiet hope that refused to die. Minutes before his interview, chaos erupted in the lobby when an elderly man collapsed near the revolving door. People scattered in panic, unsure what to do. Some stepped around the fallen stranger as if he were an inconvenience. Ethan didn't hesitate. He dropped his folder, rushed over, and supported the man's head. His hands shook as he checked for breathing and called for help. The stranger's eyes fluttered open, confused and frightened. Ethan stayed by his side, ignoring the receptionist yelling that interviews could not be delayed for any reason. An ambulance arrived, and the paramedic asked if anyone knew the man's medical history. Ethan stayed, answering what little he could, holding the shaking hand of the stranger until they loaded him onto the stretcher. By the time everything settled, Ethan looked at the clock and felt his chest tighten. His interview had already started without him. When he reached the office floor, the hiring manager barely looked up. Coldly, she told him punctuality was non-negotiable. Despite Ethan's explanation, his opportunity vanished with a polite but final rejection. Defeated, Ethan stepped out of the building into the cold air, his dreams shattered in less than an hour. He replayed the moment over and over, wondering if he should have walked past the man like everyone else. Rent was due, his savings were gone. Helping that stranger had cost him the one chance that might have lifted his family out of constant struggle. As he boarded a crowded bus back to his tiny apartment, regret gnawed at him, not because he'd helped, but because doing the right thing had once again left him with nothing to show for it. 3 days later, Ethan received an unexpected phone call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was calm and professional, asking him to come to the same building immediately. Assuming it was a mistake, he explained he had already been rejected. The voice insisted. Confused and anxious, Ethan borrowed money for the train fare and returned. This time, security greeted him with unusual respect. The elevators opened to the executive floor he had never seen before. His heart pounded as he was escorted into a massive glass office. Inside, standing near the window overlooking the city, was the same man Ethan had helped in the lobby. Only now, he looked nothing like a helpless stranger. He wore an elegant suit, his posture strong, his eyes sharp and intelligent. The man turned with a faint smile and introduced himself as William Harrington, founder and owner of the entire corporation. Ethan felt dizzy. The stranger he had knelt beside on the cold marble floor was the most powerful man in the building. Fear crept in as Ethan wondered if he was about to be sued for something he didn't understand. William dismissed the staff and gestured for Ethan to sit. He explained that he had collapsed due to a sudden heart rhythm disorder and that the board had attempted to keep his identity hidden during the emergency. Surveillance footage revealed how one young man ignored rules, interviews, and self-interest to help him without hesitation. William had personally watched that footage more than once. His voice softened as he told Ethan that loyalty, courage, and empathy were rarer than skill. Then he asked Ethan one simple question: "Would you still help me if you knew who I was?" Ethan didn't hesitate before answering. He said it wouldn't matter who the man was, because when someone collapses, they become just a person in need. Silence filled the office. Then William laughed quietly in disbelief. He admitted that thousands chased him for opportunity, money, and influence, yet only one had stepped forward expecting nothing in return. William picked up a folder from his desk and slid it across. Inside was a formal employment contract, far above the position Ethan had applied for. It was a role that came with trust, access, and a future beyond Ethan's wildest dreams. Ethan's hands trembled as he read the offer. The salary alone could change his entire family's life. Yet fear followed closely behind gratitude. He asked if this was charity or some kind of test. William shook his head and said companies failed not because of weak products, but because of weak character in leadership. He didn't want an employee who arrived on time and walked past suffering. He wanted someone who would stop the entire machine if a human being collapsed beneath it. For the first time in weeks, tears burned in Ethan's eyes. News of Ethan's sudden promotion moved quickly through the company. Some whispered that he had connections. Others accused him of being a lucky nobody. The same hiring manager who had rejected him refused to look him in the eyes. Ethan felt the weight of judgment every day, but he worked harder than anyone else on the floor. He stayed late, asked questions, learned systems, and took responsibility for mistakes others avoided. Slowly, quiet respect replaced jealousy. People realized he had not taken a shortcut, he had taken a detour through integrity that most were too afraid to choose. Months later, William invited Ethan to his home for dinner. Over the meal, William confessed that years of ruthless business decisions had left him surrounded by talent but empty of trust. Ethan's actions had reminded him of the boy he once was before power reshaped his priorities. He told Ethan that collapsing in that lobby may have saved his heart medically, but being helped by a stranger had healed something far deeper. For the first time in years, William felt safe knowing his company might one day be guided by someone who valued people over profit. Ethan used his income to clear his parents' debts, move his younger sister into a better school district, and finally sleep at night without fear of eviction notices. Yet he never forgot the bus ride home after losing that interview. He kept the memory close as a reminder that doing good often feels like falling backward before it becomes a leap forward. Every time he passed the lobby, he glanced at the same spot where William had collapsed. Not with pride, but with humility. That single moment of compassion had quietly rewritten his destiny. Years later, when economic hardship struck the company and layoffs were inevitable, Ethan stood beside William during the hardest decisions. He argued for reduced executive bonuses instead of mass firings. William listened. Thousands of jobs were saved because one young man once refused to walk past a stranger. Employees would never know the full story, only that the company handled crisis with unusual humanity. Ethan had lost a job once for helping a stranger, but that loss had planted the seed for a future that would allow him to help thousands without losing himself. On the anniversary of the day they met, William and Ethan returned quietly to the lobby together. No press, no announcements, just two men standing where everything had changed. William placed a donation into the emergency response fund created in honor of that moment. Ethan stood beside him, not as a poor applicant anymore, but as proof that kindness, when tested, never truly fails. The world had once punished him for compassion, but in the end, it rewarded him with purpose, trust, and a life built not on ambition alone, but on the simple courage to stop and care.